Now we're at a point where evidently the immigration system in Canada sent out all these letters and then went, oops.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Liberals have managed to screw up immigration again.
Let's take a look. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. So just a couple days ago, this story broke under the radar. Government abruptly suspends citizenship certificates issued under Lost Canadians law. Thousands granted citizenship certificates after change late last year.
The federal government has suddenly suspended a number of Canadian citizenship certificates issued to people around the world who became eligible for citizenship late last year. In a notice emailed Saturday to an unknown number of people who successfully applied for and obtained citizenship certificates based on having a Canadian ancestor, Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada ordered them to return their certificates pending a review of their files. Quote, "The purpose of this letter is to inform you that I have information in my possession that indicates that you may not be entitled to hold a Canadian certificate of citizenship," end quote, reads the notice signed by Peggy Sun, Registrar of Canadian Citizenship. Many of those who received the letter, like Valerie Campbell of Bucksport, Maine, are in shock. Campbell and her son Morgan received their citizenship certificates based on her family roots in Quebec and Ontario. After she received her certificate in March, Campbell put her home up for sale, began packing, and started planning a move to New Brunswick or Nova Scotia. Campbell said the suspension notice came out of the blue. Quote, "It was a complete and total shock. I had no idea this was coming, that there were any problems at all," end quote, she said in an interview. Her Canadian citizenship certificate proudly framed and hanging on the wall behind her. Campbell is one of an estimated 4,075 people from around the world, half whom were born in the United States, who received proof of citizenship by descent certificates following the adoption by Parliament in November of Bill C-3. The change in law allows people living in other countries who can trace their lineage from Canadian ancestors to qualify for Canadian citizenship, even if their Canadian ancestor left the country several generations back. Prior to Bill C-3, Canadian citizenship by descent was limited to the first generation born or adopted outside of Canada to a Canadian citizen. However, that limitation was struck down by the courts as unconstitutional, and Ottawa was ordered to pass a law providing citizenship to those who became known as quote-unquote lost Canadians. Estimates of how many people could qualify for Canadian citizenship under the change vary. While the Parliamentary Budget Officer has estimated that 115,000 people could be affected by the change, Immigration Minister Lena Mettledge-Diab told the House of Commons Immigration Committee that they didn't expect a surge. Since the change went to effect on December 15th, the wait times for IRCC to process applications for citizenship certificates has increased substantially from 5 months in May 2025 to 15 months. While the backlog was 56,000 applications in April and 70,400 in May, the IRCC's website shows 82,000 people are now waiting for their applications for citizenship certificates to be processed.
So CBC isn't the only publication out there that's reporting on this. There are publications out there that are, interestingly enough, exclusively focused on immigration into Canada, which is interesting, very interesting to me. But we wanted to give you a sense of one of those publications, and here we are. Canada asks new citizens to hand back their citizenship certificates. This is from the CICnews.com.
Recent applicants under Canada's expanded citizenship laws are facing renewed scrutiny from the government after their citizenship application has been approved. The most recent amendment to the country's Citizenship Act enabled a wave of applications for citizenship by descent, some of which are now facing pushback from the federal government. On the afternoon of June 13th, Canada's Citizenship Department sent emails to recent recipients of a Canadian citizenship certificate across the United States.
So this is an example of the letter that was actually sent out. This comes from a Reddit post. And, the person redacted their name, obviously, and this just gives you a sense of what this letter actually says. And this is in the article, the CIC News article about this, and this gives kind of a breakdown of what the letter says. So, in a nutshell, it says that, well, the Canadian Immigration Agency responsible for this can revoke citizenship if it believes that it was given to you in error or if it requires some more documentation. So they send that letter out and they say, we need more information and we need that from you now. And if that's fine, we'll send the certificate back. And then it says, why did these files get flagged? So basically, the bold parts are the important parts. First, the document submitted did not come from the source authority. So basically, the proof of your quote-unquote substantial connection to Canada didn't actually come from an authority that was deemed to be the authority on that, and so we can't accept it. Or second, when an applicant could not get a source document, they didn't include any explanation or proof of what they had in order to actually obtain those documents in the first place. So what that means is, okay, well, I'm a lost Canadian and I'm supposed to provide some information as to why I have a substantial connection to Canada. And either one, the documents I submitted don't cut it, or two, I couldn't get the documents and I couldn't prove that I tried to get those documents. That's basically what that says to me. Now, the immigration file has been a complete disaster.
You can say that again.
From Sean Fraser to Mark Miller to now, Diab, it's been a complete disaster. And Jenny Kwan of the NDP, who was, one of the sponsors and proponents of this bill, she got mad and wrote a letter to the Minister of Immigration a couple days ago. And this is that letter. It's about 4 or 5 pages long, so we're not going to go through it, but, suffice it to say, she's saying, this is an outrage. What's going on? This is ridiculous. And you need to give these people back their certificates of immigration and stop these shenanigans. But herein lies the problem. This is essentially the summary of Bill C3. And it comes down to what we outlined very early on in our concern about this is the actual pieces where it discusses substantive connection. And you can see here there's a couple of sections in the summary where it talks about this, but it doesn't really define this in the bill. What it was defined as is essentially 3 years. If you've been in the country for 3 years, not in succession,
and at any point in your lifetime,
right? If you have any sort of substantive connection for Canada for 3 years, then that counts.
And your parents have to be Canadian,
right? Yeah, you actually have to have a relative in Canada that is Canadian. Now, we want to take you back almost a year. So we're going back to June 5th of 2025 when this new government introduced this legislation, and they had a press conference with the then immigration minister, Mark Miller. And this is what the reporters were asking. This is what the response was. And this was our take on it.
Don, you have an idea of how many people this actually captures?
No. Every time, I'm always asked the same question, and the answer is no.
Concerns about so-called Canadians of convenience, folks who want to use the advantages of being a Canadian citizen without necessarily taking part in the daily life of this country. What kind of evidence are you going to require from folks to become citizens under this new bill? What are the mechanisms?
And it's important. It's an important point that, again, citizenship isn't for everyone, and there are at times people that want to gain Canadian citizenship by convenience. We believe that the naturalization test and substantial connection test is one that creates that connection to Canada. We believe that it's fair, and we believe that it's compliant. Again, I'm not a judge. I don't sit in a court, but again, we will have to address that in due course as it arises. The citizenship is very much a privilege that needs to be earned in a lot of circumstances, but certainly not in these cases where it was just patently unfair to begin with. And the law that was passed in 2009 manifestly unfair, as Don said, as the court said.
Just a clarification, is it 3 years overarchingly, 3 years within a specific period?
It doesn't have to be consecutive over a period.
So some issues that obviously still exist with this bill is how many people would be granted citizenship under this bill?
They don't know.
They have no idea.
Granted, this was last year. Maybe they do know the answer now, but we haven't seen it anywhere.
Yeah, so that's one. Number two is, what is a substantial connection? Well, it seems to be that you have to spend 3 years in Canada.
In your entire life.
Right. So this is a issue because you could come here for a year, then go away for 10 years, come here for another year, go away for 10 years and come here, and then for another year, and then there you go.
There's
You've
your
qualified.
3 years. Or maybe your parents brought you here when you were very little, say at age 2, and you left when you were 6. And now you've been living the vast majority of your life somewhere else, maybe in Europe, let's say. And
If
then,
you have kids.
Yeah, are they now Canadian citizens because you haven't been living in Canada for 20 plus years?
By this law, the answer may
Is
be yes. And it's also for adopted kids as well. So if your parents had lived in Canada for 3 years and you're living in like Eastern Europe or Australia or something like that, and they adopted you, you get to be a Canadian citizen. This is the crazy part about this law. So while the law is good in that they are trying to put this in to avoid every single child becoming a Canadian citizen, regardless of how much time that their parents spent in Canada, that's a bad thing if that were to happen, and that's why this law is being put into place to prevent that from happening as a result of the court ruling. They really need to look at what substantial connection to Canada is.
So you could argue on the one hand that this law is a good thing because it prevents absolutely every child who is born of a Canadian citizen from claiming Canadian citizenship. But on the other hand, I don't think it goes far enough. 3 years at some point in your lifetime, then to be able to pass on your citizenship to your child, it doesn't seem as if it goes far enough. As we said, you could be born somewhere else, lived in Canada for 3 years, completely left the country as a child and never gone back, and then your children born somewhere else in the world could have Canadian citizenship and all the rights and advantages that comes with it. Now, we want to protect our citizenship. We want Canadians who are proud of our country. We want Canadians who share our values. We want Canadians who will contribute to our country, to our economy. We don't want Canadians of convenience. And I'm hoping that in the later stages of this bill, maybe second, third reading, or even committee, that they will inspect this 3-year rule and make it a little bit more robust. Because as we've already pointed out, there are issues with saying to somebody, well, you can pass on your citizenship as long as you spend at least 3 years at some point in your life here in Canada.
Now we're at a point where evidently the immigration system in Canada sent out all these letters and then went, oops.
Well, now, and if memory serves, this was the bill where they had made amendments in committee, and because the NDP is not a recognized party in Parliament, they were not able to vote on those amendments. But as soon as they got back to the House, they were able to vote on those amendments. So anything that was amended in committee then got shot down in Parliament, and it essentially went through in its original form. And as predicted, it's causing major issues. In this case, particularly the backlog of people trying to get their citizenship certificates.
Well, especially because during that press conference back then, they asked the question, how many people? Oh, well, we don't know. We get asked that all the time. We don't know. Probably a good idea to actually figure that out. And if you don't know, problematic for this legislation. And yet Diab says, well, we don't expect a surge. How can you say that when you have no idea how many people this affects?
It increased the wait time threefold.
Right. By 300%. Let's just put that out there. 300% increase in wait time.
And I mean, Canadian citizenship is special, and all the rights and privileges that come with being a Canadian citizenship, come with being a Canadian, are, in my opinion, almost sacred. You know, like my grandparents could have come to any country in the world and they chose Canada. And that's why I'm a Canadian citizen. And I have the right to participate in our democracy. I have the right to free speech. I have the right to freedom of religion, all these amazing things. And that, again, that's not for everybody. Not everybody should be voting in our elections, for example. So if you have someone who's passed on their citizenship to a child or a grandchild, now that individual, the child or the grandchild, can vote in Canadian elections, even if they've never been here. Is that right?
Well, and this is why, you know, we'll have some conversations just in passing with people that we know, people that are not political, that they don't say they're in one party or the other, but they have immigrated to this country and they've been here for, 10 or 15 years. And they are completely outraged with what is going on because to them, citizenship is sacred. They had to work really hard to actually attain their Canadian citizenship and they value it. And when they see people, even from their own country, that are coming in now that hold a complete disdain for this country or disregard the meaning of what citizenship actually is in this country, it really, really bothers them because they say, listen, like I had to fight tooth and nail to get in this country and I'm proud of that. Now we're letting people in and it doesn't mean anything because it's so easy to get in and you have people that are just taking advantage of it. And it's just fascinating to see the divide over people that are immigrating to this country from the same or originating country, and there's this divide between them.
Well, and it's interesting because this whole bill was supposed to prevent Canadians of convenience, but it seems to have done the exact opposite. I don't think they were expecting this many applications in such a short period of time. And the story like the woman in the CBC article, I imagine is not the norm where you're actually looking to move to Canada. I think it's a lot of people that are just like, okay, well, I can apply for citizenship now. So that's what I'm going to do. And again, why are they applying for citizenship? Is it because they want to move to Canada and participate in our economy and pay taxes and raise their kids here? Or is it just kind of like, well, I can, so I will? And these are the questions I don't think got asked in Parliament.
Well, and the other aspect is who screwed up in the immigration department to send out all of these certificates to people that perhaps didn't deserve them. And now they're asking for them back. They're saying, please, pretty please, send them back. You may or may not be eligible for this. This just goes to show that, number one, the Liberals passed legislation having zero regard for the actual impact that it has on Canadians or non-Canadians abroad.
And don't forget the NDP helped with that.
And number two, they cannot run their departments. Their departments are a complete gong show. And these are the people that are having these massive impacts on our society. And they're just running these departments into the ground. How much is it costing in overtime? How much is it costing in all of this backlog here? What are they going to do about this backlog? Are they going to hire temporary new people to come in and try and process this? How much is that going to cost on the Canadian taxpayer? Or are they just going to do overtime? Or. And this can lead to union grievances. It can lead to all of these other impacts that happen within government agencies that only people that have actually been in government actually understand as to what that means. But this is completely ridiculous. And it just underscores that not only should this law be completely reworked, not only should the immigration minister, Ms. Diab, be completely fired from this, it means that this Liberal government obviously is not qualified to run a country. Never mind a lemonade stand. And they need to be fired as soon as possible.